All right, today's lesson is on finding the percent of a number. And as the directions in the box here say, there really are two ways of going about this. You can write the percent as a fraction and then multiply, or you can write the percent as a decimal and then multiply. So it kind of depends on what the problem is and how easy it is to work with. But you want to make sure you're comfortable working with both fractions and decimals. Both ways. Sometimes it really is easier just to keep it in the form of a fraction. And what we see a lot with students coming into high school is that they often don't like to work with fractions because they are so used to using their calculator that they'd rather use a calculator. So then if it has to be a fraction way, they get stuck. So just make sure you're comfortable with both ways of finding a percent of a number or doing any kind of work. You're okay with both fraction work and decimal work. Fractions aren't scary. They can be your friends. Plus they have the letter F and the R, so they're already, what, quarter of the way, third of the way of being a friend? F-R-I-E-N-D. So fractions are almost your friend already. Yep, they are 1/3 of the way to being your friend. Perfect. All right, let's take a look at example number 1. It says find 25% of 80. Again, there are a couple ways of looking at this, right? You can write 25% as a fraction and then reduce and multiply. That's one way of doing it here. So let's take a look at what they did. They take the 25%, and you can see we're going to do 25%, and as a percent, we take the number, and a percent is how much out of 100. So that becomes 25 out of 100 is where that fraction came from. Now they went ahead and reduced it. You may not recognize how that could reduce right away. You might leave yours as 25 over 100, and that's fine. In this terms here, we're going to say 25% of 80. So we're going to say 25 out of 100 of, so of becomes mean multiply, a little shortcut there, of 80. And we can write 80 like this, okay? In this case here, they left it as 80 there, but they've already reduced to a fourth, so that's all right. Then we can multiply straight across if we want to, so 25 times 80. Again, you know, if you're using a calculator, you could do that, and you get 2,000. And then 100 times 1 is 100. And then I can reduce the zeros, reduce that. So I'm left with 20 over 1, or just plain old 20. Okay, so that's one way of looking at a problem like that. Again, their way of looking at being reducing 25 over 100 to a 1/4 does make for a little simpler problem, right? Because that becomes 80 over 4, which then is 80 divided by 4, which is still 20. Depends on how you want to look at that. This same problem could be written and solved using a decimal version as well, right? I could turn the 25% into a decimal. To do that, what I want to do is take the 25 that I have, and I'm going to move the decimal place over 2 spaces to reduce it, to turn it into a decimal. That's how we convert that there. So 25%, move the decimal over 2 hops, we get 0.25. So it's 0.25 times 80. So again, as a math problem here, I can do 0.25 times 80 with multiplication. I have a 0 there, and then that's 0 times 0 is 0. I could bring my space folder for the next one. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 20. I add that up, and it looks like 2,000, but it's not. I gotta remember I have 2 behind the decimal, so I go 1, 2, and I'm back to 20. So 2 different ways of approaching it. You can do it with the fraction way, turn the percent into a fraction, or you could turn the percent into a decimal. Depends on which one's more convenient for you, which one you like to do, but you want to be comfortable with both methods there. Okay? One more example they gave you, I just kind of pointed out to you here, down here, example 2. What number is 15% of 200? So our percent number is 15%. You can see then this example, they're turning it into 0.15. Of becomes multiply, and 200 there. So you multiply 0.15 times 200 to get 30. And again, that's 200 times 0.15. So it's 0, 0, 10. Space holder. 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 0, 2. We add those up, and we have 3. We have 2 behind the decimal here, so I need to move 2 spaces there for 30. So either way works. Could this be 15 out of 100? Yep, you could have done 15 out of 100 times 200 and multiply that out and you'll still end up with 30 when you're done. All right, let's look at a couple examples real quick just to make sure we're on the right page. So here we go. Here's another one here, 20% of 50. So this is kind of some sample ones for you before we jump into the homework, right? So 20% of 50. Again, I could use that as a decimal. I can make that 0.20 and then of multiply it by 50. So I have 0 there. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. I have 2 behind the decimal. So I move there and I end up with just plain old 10. So that works great. I could also, of course, make this 20 out of 100 times 50. So 50 times 20, in my case here, 50 times 20 is going to be equal to 1,000. And 100 times 1 is 100. So I reduce a 0 and a 0. I'm left with 10 over 1, which is still equal to plain old 10. Okay, a couple ways of looking at things like that. Let's see, do I want to show you another one quick? Sure. Let's look at one more. So 5% of 1,500. Again, two ways of looking at it, right? We could do this 1,500 times. Now this one's interesting. If it's 5%, remember for here, 5%, I need to move the decimal over 2, which means I need to make a space holder 0 there. So that becomes 0.05 times 1,500. So a common mistake kids make with 5% is they forget that it needs to hop 2 spaces. So make sure you hop 2 spaces before you multiply that out. And again, when you multiply that out, you're going to end up with a simple answer of 75. I'm not going to work that out for you because, again, you could check it with a calculator. If I want to do it as a percent, or as a fraction, sorry, I would do 5 over 100, that's 5%, times 1,500. Okay? And again, I multiply that out and see what I come up with. 1,500 times 5 is actually 7,500 over 100. And again, reduce, reduce, and you're left with 75 over 1, which is same as 75. Okay, so this is some samples there of what you're going to do tonight on your homework. You're going to be working on the odd problems, and the odd problems are going to be here on the skills practice. Zoom out there for you. So you're going to do 7.1 skills practice, finding the percent of a number, just the odds, numbers 1 through 19. All right, pause the video, good luck, and come back and check out some of the odd solutions. I'm going to work out and do numbers 1, 3, 9, and I'll do 17 for you guys, okay? But the rest you can check out on your own. See you back here in just a minute. All right, let's take a look at the homework solutions, looking at numbers 1, 3, 9, and 17. So for the first one, we have find 80% of 80. And again, you could do it multiple ways. You could have chosen to turn that 80% into a decimal by hopping over 2 spaces and making it 0.80, and then multiplying that by 80. That works just fine. So you have a 0 there, 0 times 0 times 0, 0. All right, bring a 0 down there. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 8 is 64. I have 2 digits behind the decimal, so I move it over 2 spaces, and we end up with 64 as a solution there. You could have also done 80 out of 100 times 80, and that would have given you 6,400 over 100. Reduce to 0, and you're left with 64 over 1, which is also just plain old 64 for number 1. All right, number 3. Number 3, we have 35% of 20. So once again, however you want to do that, let's do a fraction on this one first. So let's go 35 out of 100 times 20 over 1. So 35 times 20 is going to be equal to 700 over 100. And again, how you get 700 quickly, 35 times 2 is 70. Added a 0, we got that there. I can reduce, so 700 divided by 100 is equal to simply 7. You could have also done it with a decimal, and that would have worked just as well, right? That would have been 0.35 times 20. To move the decimal over there, same solution, 6, 7, 2 hops, so we're at 7. Looking at number 9. Number 9 is 12% of 150. Depends on how you want to do it. If I did it with a decimal, I'm going to turn 12%, hopping back 2 spaces into 0.12. I'm going to multiply that by 150. Because 150 is a 3-digit number, I'll put it on top and go something like that. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. Space holder. And then we have 0, 5, and 1. Going to add that up. 0, 0, 8, and 1. So we have 2 behind the decimal, 2 behind the decimal, and we have 18 as a solution. Again, it could also be 12 out of 100 times 150 over 1. Right? That works as well. 150 times 12 is equal to 1,800 divided by 100. Reduce, reduce, and you're left with just 18. Okay, so a couple ways of doing that one as well. Let's look at one final one here. Let's look at number 17. 17 is 37.5% of 16. So this is an example here where I would probably say, well, let's turn that into a decimal. So return the percent by going 1, 2 hops there. So we really have 0.375, and we're going to multiply it by 16. So this is an example where it's probably a little easier to do the decimal version. So 6 times 5 is 30, 7 times 6 is 42, plus 3 is 45, 18, 6 times 3 is 18, plus 4 is 22, and we have 5, 7, 3. So now we're going to add that up. 9, 10, carry the 1, and 6, 6. And we have 3 behind the decimal, so 1, 2, 3 hops. So we would say the answer is 6. Is our answer for number 17. Okay, hope that helps you out a bit, and we'll see you for the next lesson.